Tally-ho, my fellow bards. Grab hold of something and hang on for dear life. This episode will be about the tale of ships and sorcery, exploration and strife, the unique RPG, Upwind. As always, I will be your captain bard, Chris, and I am joined by Morale Officer Ian.
Ho!
Brooke.
The Stowaway.
Will.
Communications.
And our special guest today, Courtney.
The red shirt.
Now for a short summary of the Upwind RPG. Upwind is a tabletop RPG produced by Biohazard Games in conjunction with Nocturnal Games and written by Jeff Barber, John Hay, Michael Knowles, and Jason Werner. It was first released on Kickstarter and was fully funded in the first 13 hours. It was subsequently released in March of 2019, and since its release, Upwind has also released 2 of their own campaign books, The Grand Amplifier and Three Beasts, and a card-based board game, Upwind Incursion. Described as an intersection of Treasure Planet, Studio Ghibli's Castle in the Sky, and Wizards, the game revolves around a party, a group of explorers knights, as they travel through the uncharted skies, searching for ancient artifacts and relics of the Masters of the Wind. Magic fuels the world in the form of 4 elemental potential: wind, arc, rain, and ore, and also powers their sky ships. Unlike most RPGs, instead of dice to determine outcomes of events in-game, Upwind uses the Q quantum system. The Q system is narratively focused and uses bidding, where the moderator and player each play cards as part of the play. Prior to the play, both determine the outcome if the player were to win and if the player were to lose the bet, and whoever has the highest total wins. There's a lot to get into, so let's get started. First of all, what was everyone's overall feeling on the game?
I loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It gave a lot of ability to just kind of do what you wanted.
I will note, I did DM this game. I do not have a gun pointed at anyone's heads at the moment.
I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job, Chris. Thank you again.
Hell yeah. Alright, so, do we need to do a little sort of recap of our rubric, or do we think we're good here?
We went over it.
I think we're good on
Last
that, but
time.
do we want to share a little bit about what happened in the game?
Absolutely, if you guys are inclined.
I'll start. I got to play a chicken man, which is the best thing to ever happen, and I passed out a lot of Nutri-Grain bars to persuade the baddies to tell us what we wanted to know, which is pretty fun.
I played an airhead noble who I based their personality off of Seahawk from the She-Ra series, and I had so much fun being an absolute idiot.
And what was their name again?
Skyshark.
I played a crafty thief who was named Mira, who was obsessed with metal. That's all she wanted was the metal.
The shinies.
The shinies.
I ended up playing an idealistic veteran, and I enjoyed that.
Straightforward.
For context, in case you guys didn't watch the Twitch stream, which is available on our YouTube probably, and also on our Twitch for a little bit, it did revolve around the party basically thwarting a theft attempt at a museum, and then doing some roleplay with the NPCs there and an interrogation and fighting off a tornado. So it's very exciting if you are interested. If any of that interested you, I definitely recommend checking it out.
I stabbed a tornado to death.
It was
Yes.
it was a blast. Even the Twitch chat was lit with Pride Salmons.
As a quick note, I will also say we're recording on July 3rd, so any loud bangs you hear are fireworks. We are not being shot at.
We are safe so far.
Additionally, I might be responsible for some loud bangs. I did just drop my book on the table.
No.
Oh no.
Okay, we can forgive you for that.
All right, so let's get right into it then. Starting with system, number of players. I feel like the game has a recommended player base, but much like most tabletop RPGs, it does not have a required amount. It recommends between 3 to 6 players for any given game, but doesn't have an upper limit or a lower limit.
I thought it was really nice, how many people. Also, when you showed me and we set up the character, even as a one shot, if you were to do it with someone, it wasn't hard, and it was actually like really interesting, even for a one shot.
Mm-hmm. I'll also note, I guess technically speaking, I should have given everyone a chance to peruse through the book. I'll just pass this around now if anyone wanted to take a look at what was available there. The book does have some rules for if there are more than 3 players or less than 3. So pretty much regardless however many people are actually in the party, there's always something to keep the balance sort of in check.
I've said on the podcast before that my preferred number of players is generally about 5, so anywhere between that is a 3 for me.
Yeah, I agreed. I gave it a perfect score for the number of players. I think it would work really well. The pacing was really good, so it didn't feel hampered by the number of people. And like Courtney said earlier, you played just like 1-on-1 with Chris, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you felt like that was still a fun experience?
Yeah, it was still fun, and
Okay.
like you could still like have a back and forth and actually like have a character instead of just like, oh, I did this.
Yeah. Okay. So then they're being very so what's the word? Conservative. There we go. They're being conservative with needing 2 people. Or do they mean 2 players or 2 like
3
humans?
players,
Oh, okay.
3 to 6 players.
That's the
so
two other
7
than the,
to
yeah.
4 people.
So,
in
but
total.
you did it 1-on-1 just fine. So, okay.
I feel like we're all pretty homogenous in opinion there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to happen a lot with this. To be
Yeah.
frank,
Just a smidge. Accessibility. That is a spot where I actually did deduct a point there. Yes. So less so in regards to the game doesn't actually have any strict races in it. It's all about nationalities, so which region you're from. That's why you could have like a chicken person. I had some NPCs that were like kind of like tieflings, but with like little nub horns. There was, when we were doing some one-on-ones, I introduced like the default fantasy races: dwarves, halflings, elves, orcs, etc. So there's no requirement there. The only thing I will say that the book has some really small text in some cases, and they use like this pale blue background to represent like the sky, but sometimes they'll use the light blue text when using examples, which there are a lot of, which is good, but because of that text, it sometimes makes it a little harder to read, so I did take some points off there.
yeah. I did see that, but I also thought that the way they used the card system for how they pulled things out was a lot more accessible for people. Like, I know this is probably the quickest I've picked up a TTRPG, because usually there's a lot of addition, and as much as addition is easy for some people, it's not as quick for others. So doing it this way really, at least for me, it streamlined it to a point where I could really enjoy and pay attention to the nuance.
I will say as you said, playing cards are, you can get them anywhere. Literally pick them up at a gas station. They're even easier to get than dice, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been used for over, 1,000 years at this point, and have been streamlined so that pretty much anyone can use them. You can get them in Braille. You can get them so that the numbers are clearer to see. They have little icons to show how many diamonds or hearts there are. So even if you can't read numbers, you can count you can see what the card is.
Can I share a fun fact?
Yeah.
Those little pictures are called pips.
I did not know.
Okay, sorry.
That's a fun fact.
No, I
Giving me
enjoy
an
it.
education.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bard's Fun Facts. All right. I do feel like that is a little bit touching on materials, so we're kind of jumping around a bit. But yeah, I feel like, requiring a deck of cards. I should note, the game does require every player to have 1 deck of cards.
Yeah.
So, like, at the maximum recommended is 7 total, like, people. So the DM has 1 deck of cards, and then there are 6 other decks of cards. So getting 7 decks of cards is but I mean, I went to Walmart to buy all of mine, and I got them for like 97 cents each. So it was like, no, it was like less than $7 for a set, enough for everyone here, and then some.
Yeah, and you can't get polyhedrals at that price.
Yeah. So yeah, materials for me got a good score, but sort of cutting back to...
Well, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to talk about that with accessibility because it's a factor.
Gotcha.
Having the fact that it uses playing cards, I feel, makes it more accessible. As opposed to dice, where unless you have a local game store, you can't get those without going on Amazon.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. But that is also followed by comprehension, which, Brooke, you also actually kind of brought up in your response.
If I can understand a game, it is perfectly clear, because I am dense.
Would you also like to bring up the status of when you made your character?
Very drunk. So I did make my character completely drunk and was very insistent on making sure that I was drunk through the whole process. So as soon as I started sobering up, we kept going quicker. And I was able to do it with only minor setbacks.
So yeah, the creation process is pretty simple. Actually, like, playing the game, there are some more complex details that we brought up, like, in-game, but they don't require much more explaining than, like, when this happens, do this. There was never, like, a crazy mechanic like, oh yeah, you gotta move your cards over to this deck, and then you have to shuffle these two decks together, and then draw 4 from one deck, and none of that. It was just draw from the top of your thing and add an extra thing. Or just add an extra thing.
I'm going to say it again, too, because it was so easy to understand the card system and, like, how you were playing with the cards. The comprehension was so much easier. There was no remembering formulas, which I love a lot of the bigger TTRPGs, but they're formula heavy, and I need cheat sheets. I did not need a cheat sheet for this.
Yeah, there was no adding or, like, you get +3 because you have these abilities. It's like, I can play this, and that is it.
The most you get is, I could add 1 extra card because of, like, I'm a knight.
Yeah.
It was very straightforward.
The cash system is really, really robust. I like that.
It's the best.
All right. That's good for system. Let's
Before
move...
that, though,
yeah.
you brought up something cool off mic about this system. Didn't you say something about it being...
Open game license, yes.
Okay.
So, as part of one of the stretch goals for Upwind, they said that they would be releasing an open game license for the Q system, the quantum system. And so they did do that. It's available for free on the actual Kickstarter page underneath one of the updates. But I also believe that the Biohazard Games website does have Upwind available along with all of those links. So you can get not only the character sheets, but also the open game license, which has most of the rules, and the quick start setup, which has all of the important pertinent rules for Upwind written in it. So that means that if you guys did want to, like, make a game of any kind... is that fireworks going on?
Yeah.
I thought someone was tapping on the table, and
I
was
did
like, what
too.
the hell?
Oh, no,
No.
it's finale time.
Yeah, we got the
Which means
finale.
hopefully it's over soon.
Yeah. Festive for the 19th.
All right, but the open game license basically just means that if there's something you'd like to use this system for, you can use it absolutely free as long as you credit Upwind or Biohazard Games somewhere, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so when it comes to setup, Chris, how was this process?
Ouchie.
Okay, how was this process? 'Cause I'm going to bring it up again. This felt a lot like the anime campaign with how you were making characters with me. Was it as difficult as that system?
So when I first started, and Ian was the first person who had a character made, I think we took an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, actually making the character. And that was the longest that I think we spent on making any singular character. Mainly because, oh yeah, you want to...
I will note that when we made that character, I was really high.
Okay, so we've had someone high and drunk, and we've been able to do this. So I think anyone can do this now.
Also high.
I was also pretty high.
I do also want to just mention we are in a place where that is legal to do.
Yes.
Yes.
Just...
And we are all of age.
Yes. So
Allegedly
just
high.
we're fine in this state to do that.
What are you talking about? I'm just getting high on life.
Oh,
Yep,
God.
there we go.
Crushing up some cereal.
But making the characters was not too bad of an undertaking. It was a lot less complex than making an epithet race character, and significantly less complex than making a D&D character. The only problem that I really had with it was that I had to explain in vivid detail the difference between abilities, skills, and potential, to the point where each of you guys could create like unique abilities attuned to both your character's description and what you want your character to do. And that was probably the hardest part of anything there, because it's really hard to say like, oh yeah, there's stuff that represents your physical stuff, but it can also represent like mental or social, and then also those can be your skill stuff or your potential stuff, but it depends on what you're doing it for.
I'm just to cut in on that. I feel like the player's handbook does do a very I feel like the player's handbook does a very good job at making it very clear at the beginning that these are different, but they can have multiple meanings. I believe they give an example of Gentle Giant. Thank you. Yes. Where it's a multi-use descriptor.
Yeah.
But once you make that connection, I feel like it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah. The example in the book, I believe, was Gentle Giant can represent like you using it for the purposes of strength, for the purposes of sociability, in the sense of you're very approachable because even though you're large, it's obvious to tell that you're like kind or courteous, and then finally in response to your literal size.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Anytime I feel you have a open-ended character creation as opposed to like a more modular one like D&D, you might run into hiccups like that occasionally, where it's a little harder to explain it to someone the first time around, because especially someone who is used to a D&D setting where they probably had a DM walk through with them and say, okay, you have this, and this, read through those on your own time and get back to me.
That was my main issue with the character thing, is like I didn't have a set like, this is a character, build from there. It was, all right, what do you want to do? And trying to like iterate what my brain was thinking into a character was a little hard for me.
Especially when you have to build it from a singular concept.
Yeah.
But once you do that a few times, because I've done the anime campaign system, I've done a few others that have had a more open-ended approach to building characters, like the Epic Princess game.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Excellence.
Excellence, yeah, the Excellence.
See also episode 1.
Yeah, you get used to it.
So I'm just going to bring it up. Be drunk for it. I literally started singing Fly Like a Bird. And that was one of my skills. Being drunk helps.
And it was used to great effect.
Yeah. See you too.
I do want to also point out that the 3 of the 4 of us took some skill or ability that allowed us to move with great haste without knowledge individually.
Yeah, we weren't in the same room or even on the same day when we created our character sheets. So
yeah,
the fact that it just shows us what we do as characters. But
you got our priorities straight.
Yeah. Expeditious retreat.
All for the better, if I might add.
Oh yeah, it worked. You okay there, bud?
Oh, I became old.
So for rate of play, how did we feel?
I feel like it could have been a little bit quicker.
Mm.
That might be on our end just because we're learning the whole set. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Now it's the finale.
It's the finale to the finale.
Yeah, it's encore.
Okay. I felt it could have been a little bit quicker. But I don't necessarily know if that's a detriment per se.
It may have been because I split the party.
I wouldn't say so much, because, I mean, we covered your section pretty quick. I will say that I was talking to Chris when he was talking about his expected time for this to take, and he was talking about 45 minutes, about more or less, maybe an hour per scene. We ended up taking about 3 hours for one scene, which is why you're getting to hear all these nice, lovely fireworks, because we weren't expecting to run this late before recording.
Yeah. It was a whoopsie.
But I will also say I gave it a 3 for rate of play, because even though it did take a lot longer than we initially expected to run this, I was never not invested in the story at all throughout. I didn't zone out at any point. I was constantly paying attention. It was easy to follow how the card playing worked. It was very intuitive, and we were allowed to make decisions in gameplay that you wouldn't normally be able to make in like a D&D, especially because you had a pool of cards where you were just constantly looking at those, considering what was currently going on, and saying, okay, well, I have this much of a chance of winning this roll if I use this ability, because I have a 6 and a 7, and the chances of him pulling this are this much, and he might have 1 or 2 jokers in the deck. There's a lot more strategy to it, and so it's not just you're waiting for your turn to roll a die and maybe do nothing that turn.
Yep. You'd always get something out of it, and I tried, even when you guys failed, I did try and introduce, like, failing, but with a bonus. So, like, sometimes you guys, that was the one of the things that happened towards the end, where one of the last things you guys tried to pull together to incapacitate the leaving assailant, and I think you guys were down by what, a point or 3?
Like 2 points.
2 points,
A
yeah.
couple points, yeah.
And the fail condition for that was you would still damage him, but he wouldn't be incapacitated. But as like an added bonus, he drops the artifact, which you guys were able to reacquire. So I like things like that. I try to do them in D&D games too, because I always feel like just not being able to do anything because you've got bad luck always feels awful, regardless of if it's like logical or fair overall.
That just speaks to you as a what was the term in this game?
Moderator?
Moderator. There we go. That just speaks to you more of a moderator and how you theme things to make it fair for everyone.
Now we get into the pricing.
$24 for this game, right?
Yep, just for the core rulebook.
Which is all we really had.
Pretty much. I mean, I had the supplemental dice, or the supplemental cards.
Did you use that other than as a deck of playing cards, though?
No, but they can be turned into a map of the world.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, like, for all intents and purposes, you could have just had a deck of cards, and you didn't use the other feature of it.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
I think the value for price is very good with this game.
Very much so. Like, for how expensive it is and how much you can do with the actual, like, world itself, it's entirely worth every penny.
Yeah.
And we're also quoting the price for the really nicely made book. Like, we're not talking about the digital download. The digital download is less. So it could be less than $24, which wouldn't even get you half of a D&D book. Like, if you somehow was able to convince them to cut one in half.
$60 is the current running price of a core rulebook, I believe.
Maybe
a little cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, with the trend of modern tabletops, the price, for the books alone is a sizable investment into the barrier of entry.
Industry standard is $60.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this has got a lot of meatiness to it for a great story. You don't need the extra bits, and it's $24, if not less.
I should also note the book itself, only separate from like the OGL and the Quick Start thing that they have on their website. The book only includes the lore of the world. Oh. You can get all of the pertinent information for how to play the game just for free from their website.
This is we need to review this again, but this is on par with Jurassic Park.
Escape Jurassic Park, yeah.
I wish I could give it more than 3 points in this column.
Yeah.
This is what games need to be more like.
Yeah. They rely on the fact that you're going to enjoy it enough that you'll want to support them, which should be the standard.
Should.
Ooh, I should also note the expansions themselves are like $11 to $14.
Yeah, no. Why isn't everyone playing this?
Yeah, that's relatively inexpensive.
Speaking of, there is like no community for this.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
This is the one zone where I had to give it like the lowest possible score.
I have never given something no points, but I couldn't find anything. And then you told me that story about the forum.
Yeah. Okay. So for fun context, before we actually started doing this, I did a little bit of research because Ian suggested that I do, and I discovered, along with their Kickstarter, they did one of the stretch goals was setting up a forum for the Upwind RPG, which they now have as the Biohazard forum, but the Upwind stuff is still on there. And the most recent post, which was about a week ago on June 29th of 2022, someone asked how to set up an aim trainer for Overwatch. Barring that, the most recently... I'm turning old again. The most recent post was in August of 2021, and the game was actually released in 2019, so...
Yeah, and I don't understand. I really don't understand. And like, I tried to look some stuff up on Reddit because everyone posts on Reddit something or other, even if it's to say they just bought a game, and I couldn't find anything on Reddit.
For what this game is, how accessible it is, how intuitive the rules are, the price of the game and its expansions, I was honestly surprised that I hadn't heard of this until Chris brought it to my attention. It really should be more popular than it is, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I haven't said that about any of the games we've gone over so far. I mean, I try not to force those kinds of opinions on things, but like, how have I not heard of this before?
Honestly criminal.
It's very criminal.
You talked about some of the extras already, Chris, with like the special playing cards that you can buy as an extra and different expansions. Was there anything else connected to this game that would have more lore content for people if they wanted to? Like,
unfortunately, apart from the 2 campaign books and the tabletop card-based battleship game and the set of playing cards that also doubles as a map of the world, they don't really have anything lore-wise. It's just the core rulebook, those 2 supplements, the tabletop or the board game and the cards. There have been, I believe they had some unofficial content that was posted in conjunction on, oh god, what was it? I think it was Drive-Thru RPG, but since it wasn't considered official, I didn't want to really talk about it. But someone made like their own like mini what is it called? Like a one-shot that people can use for Upwind.
I mean, I think that counts. On our old list, we had custom content. Like, could you make it? And we kind of rolled that into extras. So the fact that there is something out there is, at least someone else knows.
I mean, I think we should give it even more credit considering the fact that the community is so small to begin with.
Yeah.
I've never gave something a 0.
I couldn't. I gave it a 1/2.
I gave it 1.
I gave it a half.
I couldn't.
They tried, and from what it looked like, the forum itself was active for at least 2019 to 2020, and a little bit from 2020 to 2021.
And then it just died.
Yeah.
It makes me sad that it went the way of like themed games, because it really does shine above those so much.
Yeah.
It is also possible that the actual forum itself began to die because they were working on a second game called Blue Ocean, which uses the same quantum system.
So, just for funsies, the next one is enjoyment. I'm on 3. Let's say what we gave them. 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely every single point.
Yeah.
Unshockingly, from this gushing and love poem we have created for the creators of this game, I think we all unanimously decided that this is a really fun game.
Yeah, it's one of the more fun, like, tabletop RPG games I've played in a while, where it, like, just gives you that ability to really just kind of, like, say what you want to do, and then just do it, instead of being like, I'm going to do this. Actually, never mind.
Or like the Marvel system that they just came out with, where you have to flip through like 3 different charts and tables to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
They made the mistake of the original D&D. I need to have like a doctorate in mathematics to understand how the hit table works.
Horrifying. Recommendations.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Absolutely. All the points.
I
Oh.
actually give it a 2.
Really?
Yeah. I know. I would generally recommend this game to people, but I also know a lot of people in the hobby of tabletop games, especially RPGs, who need to have that modular system to do things. And everyone here just rolled their eyes because they know people like that.
As soon as you said it, was like, oh yeah, they exist.
Yeah, so it's definitely something I would recommend to most of my friends, but I also know people who really would not be able to do this. They just... That modular system is so comfortable to them that they just need to have it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a preference for gameplay, but it wouldn't really work in this scenario.
I still feel like I would recommend it to them because out of all of the ones I've played that were like this, like with the anime system and 10 candles and things like that, this one was easiest to pick up. Like it, even though it leaned heavily on making your own concepts, it wasn't that bad. Like, they gave you straight enough answers. And were there examples in the book, Chris?
Tons.
Yeah, so there was, like, a list you could go through if you were uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what I did when I wasn't too sure. I, like, looked through and like, this kind of is what I want. How can I change this? It's actually funny, after I built the character and we did the, like, just a one-off thing just to, like, get used to the game, I went home and I told my sister about it immediately. I was like, this is new. This is fun. I like these mechanics. I think this would be a fun game.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it so much.
Good job, Chris.
This was a good recommendation from you, Chris.
Yeah. Chris, would you recommend it?
Absolutely. Every single time to everyone. This podcast, the whole existence of it, I would recommend the fuck out of it.
10 out of 10 would do again.
Yes.
For replay value, we all tried to figure out a way to play this together again, and we don't normally replay or extend what we play from the podcast, at least not historically. So I gave it a 3, because like everyone is pretty down to do the next scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in fairness, this go-round did have 3 arcs that I had planned for it, and we only ever actually got through the first, so maybe that might lean towards it, but I also feel like it's got, like, really good, because it's so fresh and there's so many things that you can do with it, it's got a lot of replay value.
Innovative, complex.
Yeah, sliding scales.
Classic, simple.
Innovative 3. I like the quantum system. Q system, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Both work.
It's very intuitive. I will say, so the character that I played was very heavily based in risk. So I would charge into situations where I would almost certainly be killed. And the relic that I had basically mitigated dangerous factors, but only when I was in dangerous situations. So if I were playing this on a D20 system, I would have, in a scenario where, let's say it's Dungeons and Dragons, where I would roll an athletics check and I only have a +5, it doesn't matter. I mean, I can still roll a 1, and it would just be like, oh, well, you got 6, you're done. I'm playing this game, and I have the cards in front of me, and I'm able to assess the risk, and I can actually play this build this way in a very reckless play style, because it's not just, well, you roll a die, and if you lose, you lose.
I agree, and to add on to that, I feel like the added bonus of being able to plan your turn out a little bit more consistently ahead of time, rather than just the sort of random guesswork and assumptions that are required in most other turn-based tabletops. I feel like being able to have physical numbers represented in the cards is just a much better way to do this.
Basically, you have your dice rolls out in front of you ahead of time, and you can decide when to use them.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I like that you can see what you have, and then also the ability that the 2s and 3s don't really help you, but you can still use them to help your party, and it's still useful, as opposed to, like, you're sitting there next to someone when you're, like, in D&D rolling a dice, you're like, I can't really help you, and, like, so it's just a little more helpful.
And the fact that we don't really have initiative in this, it's kind of just, like, loosey-goosey. Well, technically they have initiative rules, but we didn't use them. So
it didn't hamper anything.
Yeah. So unlike D&D, this is probably a bad way of comparing them, but unlike D&D where you have to literally use one of your actions where you could be doing something cool for yourself to help someone else, you can do a cool action on your turn and still help other people as part of that action with the teamwork system, which is using 2s or 3s to help other people.
I also loved the drama that it created. So because we picked out our cards, it was this extended drama. Like, when you have a roll, you get the roll, you're done. Like, it's either yes, you passed, no, you didn't. Where this, you had, like, other people could help you and they could give you a card, and they're physically holding those things and putting them down. And, like, we did this fun little drama twist where, like, instead of going, like, 1, 2, 3, show your cards, we, like, had them face down and flip them at the same time. And it was, like, this extended version of drama that just made it so much more interesting and so much more fun. And then also just the mad scramble to add up the cards. And go, like, did we get it? Did we get it? 35 versus 39, woo! So I really enjoyed that. I gave it a 3 innovative too, because that's an experience that I haven't found in other TTRPGs. Mind you, I have a small scope of them, but so far it's unmatched.
And I too gave it a 3 out of innovative, and that's mainly because apart from, like, the deck of many things and the deck of illusions from D&D, I've never seen a TTRPG use a deck of playing cards for anything more than a gimmick.
I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely nice. I also gave it a 3 for innovation. It was nice.
I will say I gave it a 2, only because I wanted to try the other forms of combat. I mean, that's my only thing. I want to try everything before I give it a full, like,
Fair.
Outstanding review.
Oh, like ship-to-ship combat?
Exactly, and that is actually one of my final comments. Is if and when we do play it again, I would like to come back and maybe rescore this with more knowledge about the other mechanics we didn't get to.
We could do that in, like, a 5-minute slot on the top of an episode. Be like, hey, just an update on...
Oh yeah, no, just put an asterisk on the next to my score.
Yeah.
Will be updated later.
I will note Arc 3 did have a ship-to-ship combat happening in, like, the climax, and that's when we would have ended, but that was also completely after you guys met with Etzel.
Yeah, and after another 3 hours, because we enjoyed the game and kept going with it.
I need sleep.
Alright, guys, 6 more hours.
Yeah. How did everyone feel about the simple to complex spectrum? Because I gave it a 2 complex, because I felt like it's a good kind of complexity, but also there's mainly because of the cash system in conjunction with the crowning system in conjunction with the suit system, sort of limiting the cards that you can play while adding additional cards that you can play as part of that.
I, coming from a lot more complex tabletop games, thought that I gave this a simple 2. I thought the rules and mechanics were very clear and straightforward from the very beginning. I think the suits added to the simplicity, rather than having to have all of the rules for the cards, having them in the handbook. They're right on the players'
Character sheets.
Thank you. It's just easier.
I gave it a simple 3, just because even the way, at least for mine, it seemed like, Ian, you had a different character sheet than the rest of us.
Slightly, yes.
Yeah. So the character sheet that I was given had even spots on it to keep your cards organized. So it really did, I hate to say hold your hand, But it definitely did help you along the process and like made it very simple to understand. They even had a small section at the bottom, which I'm a sucker for repeating rules on cards. They had a little section down below to help you with face cards and things that weren't necessarily straightforward, and they just wrote that on the character sheet. So I gave it a simple 3 because it made it an easy, painless process, which I appreciate. That's what I appreciate about this game.
Yeah, I gave it a simple 2. Again, it was very simple compared to a D&D or a rolling game like that. And with everything right in front of you, it was so nice. You didn't really have to think about a lot of things. The only reason I gave it a 2, just because, like I said, for me personally, with character creation, not having a really set, ability makes it more complicated for me because my brain just doesn't work that way. But once you get over the character hump, it's streamlined. It's really easy.
I'm in the same boat as you, Courtney, on this one. And simple 2 again, because I really enjoyed the quantum system. I liked how I've said the word intuitive 4 times now. But I really did appreciate how every time, for every turn essentially, there was no confusion on what advantage I got, what debuffs I had. It was very straightforward the whole time. The most complicated thing you'd have to come up across was the caches for the a queen was for wisdom based checks, king was for crowning. Yeah, sorry. But that really, once you've done it a couple times, you got it. And that was one of the reasons why I gave it a 2 simple, was because that changes significantly when you are in an open-ended type of TTRPG like this. It's really up to the player and the DM to work it out, and that can kind of be a little bit of a hang-up, but otherwise, fantastic.
I also almost broke out laughing earlier because when Will mentioned that he had a 2 simple after I had a 2 complex, everyone just nodded in unison like he just said the thing that made the most sense in the universe. And I was just over here like, what the...
I was like, yes, no, this is
Hive
accurate.
mind. We've been together too long.
Yep. It is, the bar is
3
all
of us
high
had 2
point.
simples.
I also feel like I might believe that it's more complex because on top of, just as players, you guys didn't really have to worry about too much, but the key or the moderator has their own cache system, but it's all mentally set up. So I don't have technically speaking, you're supposed to set it up in advance, but there's an environmental cache, there's a character cache, there are plot caches. So if there's any thing in the plot that could cause something to be more difficult, that gets added. If there's something in the environment that makes things more difficult, I use that a couple times. And then I think we have a personal cache as well, which is just if there is some event that was triggered previously that adds a cache, that's something you would add, and that's there's a difference between innate and story caches. Story caches are once total, you can't use them ever again, they're expended, while innate caches you guys refresh every session, which is also pretty cool. Most of you guys just had innate caches, no one had a story cache, but those are things that you can accrue later on, which is why I felt it was a little bit more complex. But
I also feel like from your end too, it's more complex because you have the open worlds and I've only DM'd a couple times, so I'm not as versed in that, but it is hard if you don't have that ability to have something kind of set in how you do things and how strong something is or how something works. So it does seem like from your end, complex makes the most sense because you have so much more to do.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Do you want to go around with numbers?
Yes.
So I gave it a 38.5 out of 42.
34.5 out of 42.
I was 35.5 out of 42.
35.
I can't believe Brooke had a higher score than me. I had a 38. Half a point. I don't know where you got it.
I have never... I think this is the highest I've ever scored a game.
I think for me as
Same.
well.
Yeah. Did we have any follow-up comments? I just wanted to mention that this would be... I could see this being played for multiple levels of people. So if you have newer people to it, the TTRPG world, that role-playing, this would be a great one for them, but I could also see it being, scaled up for people who are very much TTRPG experts.
Really, anyone who just hates the idea that, like, their entire turn and what their character is capable of is dictated by a foul 20-sided demon.
Yeah, I want a face staring back at me or a number, like, multiple pictures, not just, one number, just being like, how dare you not roll high enough?
Or if you just need to shake it up, like, we're not saying we don't like dice systems, just that that's what's normally out there. So the fact that there's something else to kind of, like, cleanse the palate every once in a while is awesome.
I will say, going into this, because Chris and I have been talking about this for a while, I will admit that I was very skeptical. I did not think a card system would work. I doubted how fun it would be, and I am suspicious of open-ended systems as a rule. This is the highest score I've ever given a game, so try it out. I highly recommend it.
Especially
if
since
it's
you
your
just
thing.
found out the rules are free online. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Probably something I should have brought up earlier.
Yeah, no,
Admittedly, I only found out earlier today when I actually did some research on it. So that might have been something I should have looked up prior to that. But, I got it eventually. Huh. Right then. I'm full well glad that you all set sail with us on this adventure. If you would like to enjoy the game like we did, you can venture to the Drive-Thru RPG or Chaosium to pick it up. If you'd like to hear more about our future adventures or stories, feel free to visit us on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Dancing with the Bards, or on Twitch to watch our Sunday games live at With Bards. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming and joining us to our quiet ASMR Upwind review.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Hope you guys have a good day.
yeah, have a good
Have a
one.
good one.
Yeah.
I love
Oh
you.
boy, oh boy.
Bye. Bye.
To the guild I vow.